Yeah.
One of the messages of movie, not only to Americans, but for the global community, is Asians can beat a Western game in Asian way. In a way, we can triumph on your game by playing by your rules.
Yeah.
Right? So that's a one message. That's a whole that luxurious, the ravishing expenditures and the whole wedding scene, those things. Right? But at the same time,
That's true, that was so extra.
That was so weird when the water started coming in. I was like, that'd be so uncomfortable.
But now I'm like, yo, that's what rich people do. like you see a Kardashian wedding, man.
but the deep down, I think this is limitation, in my view, limitation of certain Confucian culture. It's just so family oriented. So well-being of family is priority over anything else. So in the movie, it's a tension between individual well-being of Nick as a husband or person, or well-being of family. That's a tension. And also Rachel's mom, she sacrificed for the sake of her daughter. So that tension is running through the entire movie as a plot, right? But downside is to reach certain level, that family-centered needs provide kind of cultural capital. There's protecting each other, right? And provide. That's why Asian Americans are so good in small business. Right? Because you don't have to pay outside people. You all helping each other, like
For free.
making a dumpling.
Yeah.
But it's a free,
kids, more kids is more work.
but investment is lifelong.
Right.
Think about how much parents are covering. So, I don't like first my college. Then they are willing to transfer you to different college if you can afford. And Asians, that's why I believe is the highly educated compared to whites any other group, because the parents are willing to pay for tuition, right?
Right.
But that imagination, moral imagination, stops with just family. It doesn't expand to the social or political or even the global level.
But I think it also, there is a difference in what it means to sacrifice. Because I think even in that expectation of, to sacrifice as a parent means that I sacrifice my passion, my well-being in order to give financially, in order to preserve our social status and our social structure. But I think it's interesting that in white America, so often sacrifice is not, and there's a financial sacrifice, of course, but it's social sacrifice. Because I see, like these white celebrities and rich people, what is it always like for my kids is to leverage my connections, to leverage all of these people that I know and say, hire my kid or get them accepted into USC, right? Or whatever that is, right? And then therefore their success becomes, right? What you're sacrificing is kind of these relationships. Whereas that then comes into conflict because for most of, my parents, don't embarrass me, right? There's that, don't embarrass me in front of the social status, the we that we have built. So I'll sacrifice myself, but I won't sacrifice anyone else for you as a child. And we're caught in between those two things because now we've got the money, right? Our parents are paying for our college and all those things, but we're in a society where it ends up with a sheet of paper, right? And that social capital of building connections. How many of us how many of us as Asian Americans struggle to talk to somebody our parents' age, right? Yeah. I'm not it's so hard, right? And then I see my white friends, they're like, hey, Mike, that's your dad, right? You just call your dad Mike, right? That's what gets me beat.
Yeah, there is a major difference between Christianity and Confucianism. Family is still very important in Christianity, but it is always relativized by God and also justice, idea of justice.
Right.
So what is I would say lacking in Confucianism, in my view, is that sense of public justice. So in a way, every person is equal, and every person is a child of God, and every person deserves certain respect. That's a revolutionary idea in Christianity. So Christianity encourages sometimes the necessary conflict to stand up for justice. Right? That's the story of Exodus. But Confucian story is more about the family and harmony and teamwork.
Yeah.
So that's where I believe very interesting is Nick's mother have a Bible study
Oh, that's right.
with the ladies, and that's another very
I laughed
interesting
so loud.
dimension. How that interesting intersection between Christianity and Confucian culture, and I was watching how much Nick's mother reflect that Christian value in relating to Rachel, accepting.
Well, I think that it's partly what I've seen, like with Asians, right, from Asia, they love Old Testament. I think that Old Testament, the kingdom of God, right, the tribes, right,
Genealogy.
like, the genealogies, right, like they love that. Because to me, I think one of one of the most craziest verses to me that I always come back to is when God says it is not good for man to be alone. Before sin enters the world, it says you as an individual cannot function without the group, but at the same time, the group is made up of you as individuals in the image of God. And I think that idea of sacrifice, I think for Asians, they like the Old Testament because it's like you sacrifice your individuality for the sake of our community. But then we as Americans, we often feel like, well, I like the New Testament because it's like, you know, old covenant is God, new covenant, it's all about me. And I think for God to be able to say, no, both are necessary, right? That who you are as an individual, but who you are in the community, like you are both a child of God and in the kingdom of God. And what do those two things do together?
So it's like that question of like, how much do we sacrifice? It's like, how much do we sacrifice of our own individuality, and how much do how much do our parents sacrifice of like their future and like their past? But it's like, do you guys think there's like any sort of like right balance or like any sort of correct way to sacrifice this and sacrifice this? Or is it just like sacrifice all of my individuality and just sacrifice all of my family in order to?
I think I wonder if it's like, even in that last, you know, like, oh, what like super moved me was, you know, when Nick proposes, and it's his mom's ring, which is actually Michelle Yeoh's actual ring. Like, she actually owns that ring. They were like, we need to find this bling and ring. She was like, oh, just take mine. Like, oh. But I think it's like, it's figuring out what is that mutual sacrifice, right? Where it isn't one way. And because I think for us as Asian Americans, it's my parents sacrificed for me when I was a kid, and then at some point it's gonna flip, right? And now I'm gonna sacrifice for them, which is why you see, I think, a lot of older second gen people getting very bitter at their parents, right? Like, because it was always, well, now it's my turn, as opposed to what does it mean to do that together?
Right. I think the last scene with the mahjong.
Oh yeah, mahjong.
That was
Dude, and there's so many meanings to that. Oh, it was so good.
That
I was just like,
a slap in the face, but also like so humble. The way she approached it was, and I think that is a great dialogue between children and parents, and young adults and parents. Is like, we can carry humility, but still accept that we're different. It's like, yeah, we're not quite what you want us to be. We're not quite as Korean as you may want us to be, but I do take value in what you've taught me. And actually, my mom was the one who taught me how to do mahjong. And look, like, I just owned you. Like, but and she made a point too. She's like, just because I'm different, that doesn't mean I don't know how to sacrifice.
And I think that's a really huge advantage that us as Asian Americans have, because, I mean, we're not like completely Asian, so we don't, I mean, usually Asians value complete tradition over individualism, but then being Asian American, we have that American influence. It's like, oh, we have individualism, but then we also keep our tradition. It's like that, like, benefit of being in between, like we were talking about earlier, I think is really important for us as like a community. Yeah.
And that's a very powerful thing, you know, that we struggle with is that, yeah, you don't have that in the in between can be our identity, and that identity can have power. And then, like, if God has made us that way, like, it wasn't just to, you know, choose a side, but to say that here in between there is value. So you still don't like the movie? You still don't like it? Okay.
I didn't say I didn't like it. I just thought it could have been, okay, I don't know why. It could have been more effective. But I think these deep conversations that it spurred up, I just love that. And so I'm definitely looking forward to the sequel too.
Thank you for joining us, and check in with us next time.
Thank you. Subscribe, comment below. We want to hear what you have to say, debate, and share. Yeah.
Subscribe below.
Subscribe below. And share. Thank you guys so much.